Most capital raisers believe investors hesitate because they don't like the deal, but in most cases, it's due to the lack of trust they have in you as an operator. Look, I'm not saying that trust isn't there, but understanding where they are on that trust timeline will make raises more predictable. Earlier in my career, I thought raising capital was all about confidence. If I could just explain the deal better, tighten the deck, improve the call, capital would move. But what actually kept happening was this. Investors would say they were interested, they'd take the meetings, they'd nod along, and then when it was time to commit, silence. Some of you have probably been there before, and what I eventually realized is that I wasn't reading their readiness, I was guessing. And capital raising breaks when you guess. Investors move through a psychological sequence before they commit, and if you skip steps, resistance shows up. We've all been there before. So what I'm about to show you will change how you show up and guide these investors to a decision. So let's walk through the 6 stages of the trust timeline. Stage 1, visibility. This is where people are thinking, I see you, and nothing feels off. Before anything else, investors need basic exposure. Professional presence, clean messaging, calm positioning. Here are some of the best ways we've been able to execute on this. Having a consistent LinkedIn presence now isn't just a good idea, it's essential. LinkedIn has some of the best SEO. And for fun, just Google your name and see what comes up. Here's an example of mine. We bulk upload around 90 pieces of content a week using Capitallyst Pro, and it's been a complete game changer. Having thoughtful, value-based emails consistently dripping as well is an absolute. I'm not talking one drip campaign to everyone. I'm talking about meeting people where they're at. This requires more thoughtfulness and precision. And absolutely, by all means, no pitch first behavior. First, help your potential investors determine alignment and then present opportunities. Stage 2, consistency. You keep showing up the same way. Inconsistent operators create friction and investors are scanning for stability. Best way you can execute on this is to have a predictable communication cadence, have a structured follow-up schedule, clear branding across touch points. Make sure you're showing up the same way wherever these people may come in contact with you. Stage 3, relevance. You want people realizing and thinking, this applies to me. This is where many operators fail. They present generic opportunities instead of investor-aligned ones. You can crush the stage simply by tagging your investors' preferences. We've actually created a quiz funnel within Capitallyst Pro that our users use as a lead magnet. It consists of 10 to 15 questions that an interested lead can answer to gain clarity on what types of investments align with their goals. For example, are they looking for a tax play, or maybe predictable monthly cash flow, or maybe they're in it for the long haul and they want more upside when the deal sells. Not only does this provide clarity to the investor, but it provides you as the operator more insight into how they think and what they're looking for. Another solid move is to track how they're engaging with you. We do this simply by tracking their engagement score. We assign a point value based on the different actions they take. This takes the guesswork out of it. Stage 4, association. This is where you want them thinking, people like me trust you. This stage reduces perceived risk. It provides social proof and clarity on who you serve. And the most important thing you can do here is to share case studies on the outcome that you help these investors achieve. You can also facilitate investor introductions. Like, hey Dallin, I know you're in the medical space. I wanted to introduce you to Mark. He's also a physician, and based on the conversations I've had with both of you, I think there could be some mutual benefit in you two connecting. It's that simple. You can also host small discussions. For example, put together an online workshop where you invite a self-directed IRA expert to come and present to a group of small business owners to show them how to leverage their retirement accounts into private market investments. The 5th stage of the trust timeline is confidence. This is where you want your potential investors saying to themselves, I believe you know what you're doing. The number one fear of any investor is losing their capital, and confidence comes from structure. So communicate that clearly and let them know what to expect next. Provide clear deal timelines, and don't be afraid to share why you walked away from a deal. This showcases that you're not just a yes man or woman that wants to take every opportunity thrown your way. It shows that you're methodical and that you have a process you follow. The final stage is timing. The most important thing to realize here is that you can't control, the timing of their investment. What you can control is being top of mind for when they are ready. We actually broke this down in more depth in another video. We'll provide that video link at the end of this one so you can quickly locate it. Now in this stage, this is where investors find themselves saying something like, "This feels like the right time." Timing is alignment, not persuasion. No system can force timing, but with the right systems, you can recognize signals and stay top of mind. Some questions to ask to gauge readiness are they already on your verified investor list? Have they verbally or written expressed interest in your next deal? Are they attending workshops or webinars you're hosting? These are the things you need to be aware of, but also can't expect yourself to remember and track it manually. That's what a tool like Capitallyst Pro is for. Here's where most operators drop the ball. They try to lead with confidence. They focus on polish, performance, projections. That is all important, don't get me wrong. But if relevance hasn't been established, if association hasn't reduced uncertainty, confidence can easily be interpreted as pressure. This is why pitch first behavior typically increases resistance. You don't build momentum by accelerating the ask. You build momentum by sequencing correctly. You build momentum by meeting people where they're at. I didn't ask my wife to marry me on the first date. That would be insane. So why do we as capital raisers find ourselves doing this? Your brain is not a CRM. You cannot manually track where 150 investors are on a psychological timeline. And when you try, follow-up becomes inconsistent, messaging becomes reactive, and deadlines create scrambling. This is where infrastructure becomes necessary and why we've built the trust timeline into Capitallyst Pro. We utilize things like pipelines and engagement scoring to have more insight into where these leads are at. Once you realize systems don't replace relationships, they actually protect them, you'll rethink how you're actively showing up or not showing up. The right tool and system allows you to tag stage progression, track engagement patterns, automate consistency, and see readiness signals before the raise. Over the years, I've realized that capital raising becomes less about persuasion and more about engineered consistency that builds trust on autopilot. If capital sometimes feels unpredictable, if investors feel interested but not decisive, it may not be a relationship issue. It's likely a sequencing and a trust issue. People are either progressing through your trust timeline or getting hung up at different stages, regardless of whether or not you're currently tracking it. Look, we're here to help. Join us on our upcoming webinar so we can walk through how infrastructure supports this process. The link is in the description of this video. And if you haven't experienced it yet, you'll soon realize that effort stops being enough and infrastructure becomes a responsible move. And the right infrastructure will elevate you to that next level of building trust on autopilot and will naturally make your raises more predictable. We'll see you on the inside.